Hello everyone out there in the internet, in Cyberland. Nurse Mike here, and it's about 6:30 in the morning. I'm heading out to do some stuff, but I wanted to do a quick review for you guys of a race I did yesterday for the first time, the BoneFrog, specifically the the BoneFrog Trident race. For those who don't know, BoneFrog is a race. It's another obstacle course race, much like Spartan and Tough Mudder and the rest of them. BoneFrog was created by the Navy SEALs, apparently. And because of that, throughout the course, there are a lot of military inspired things. Everything's green and brown, and it's got that whole vibe to it, which I like. You know, I'm Army myself, so I like that vibe. There are a few obstacles involved that are directly in remembrance of the military, which is very cool. But the way the Trident works, BoneFrog has 3 lengths. They do a sprint, which is 3 miles, a challenge, which is 6 miles, and a tier 1, which is approximately 9 miles, and different obstacle amounts in each one. I think the challenge has 30 obstacles in it. So the way that the Trident works, kind of like the Spartan trifecta, is if you run the 3 lengths of their races in a calendar year, you get the Trident medal, which I will show you in a second. And I got to tell you, is primarily the reason that I ran this race is for the Trident medal. So I've gotten a Spartan trifecta. You get your 3 wedge pieces, put the trifecta together, very cool. I've run the Savage race. The Savage Syndicate is their sort of version of that. You get a very large round medal that spins, which I thought was one of the coolest medals. But the Trident medal, I'll show you in a second. Stay tuned. Do not, wait till the end. You'll see it. But the way the Trident works is you can do the 3 races in a year, or you can do all 3 of those races in one day, which is what I set out to do yesterday. And the way that I thought it was going to work was you would run the challenge first, which is 6 miles. Then you'd run the tier 1 lap, 9 miles. Then you'd finish with the sprint lap, and everything, you have to meet a time. You have to basically be starting that sprint lap before 2 p.m. You start at 8:15, you got to be going before 2 p.m. The way that they did this one, I did it on Long Island, in Riverhead, Long Island, which is a very flat course, which is also part of the reason I did it. I like flat. I've done Palmerton and I've done Jersey, so I've done mountains. I don't like mountains. I like flat. The way they did this was you did 6 laps of the challenge. I'm sorry. You did 2 laps of the challenge and then 2 laps of the sprint. So it was 6 miles, 6 miles, 3 miles, 3 miles, 18 miles total, and there was your race. The nice thing is they did have a tent. Kind of like when the Spartan Ultra happens, they had a tent near the start-finish area where you could leave gear and rehydrate and fuel up in between laps. So after 6, 6, and 3, you could refuel, which was nice. I had brought my Camelback with me. My Nathan, it's Camelback, but my hydration pack filled with stuff. It turns out I did not take it on the course because I figured 6 miles was not too much before I could rehydrate and fuel up in between laps, so I did that. I will say there are a few cool obstacles that I haven't seen before. I will say their A-frame cargo net is about 3 stories tall, which is very cool. A few things that I've never seen before, just some different overhead obstacles, different grip strength obstacles, some of which I could not accomplish. I will say, and this was kind of a contention among many of the runners yesterday, the Trident runners, a lot of low crawls. I think there were 4 or 5 low crawls. They're not long, but there's a bunch of them, maybe 30, 40 yards each. I just thought it was almost a cop-out a little bit. Just here's another low crawl, here's another low crawl. Yeah, a lot of low crawling, a lot of sand. So I thought that was weird. You could have come up with something else, guys. I'll tell you that one. I realized the low crawl is a very military thing, but how many do I need to do? So, and the fact is, when you're doing 4 laps of obstacles, low crawling 20 times in a day just seemed like a lot. I will say the one thing that was kind of sad was the lack of volunteers on the course. For the first hour or two, the first lap and a half, there were volunteers there, and then it got really sparse. Like, I guess because it's a newer race on the island, the volunteers that were there were trying their best, but there weren't that many. I come from doing a lot of Spartans and Tough Mudders where there are volunteers aplenty, and there were not that many here. So hopefully next year that'll improve and I'll get some more. But so all in all, it's definitely a race I would do again. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the military feel of it. I enjoyed the obstacles. Maybe next year a few less low crawls. Wasn't terribly muddy. There was definitely one horrible mud obstacle that jacked you up. But pretty well organized. The DJ was really loud, and because of the course, I guess, was as compact as it was, there's a lot of back and forth, a lot of zigzags, a lot of, kind of this back and forth, almost like Disney World ride lines where you just back and forth and back and forth. And I guess that was just to make length. You have to figure out how to get somebody 6 miles in a small area, so they did that. But all in all, I enjoyed it. I'm a little hurting today, very sore. 18 miles will do that. It's the longest race I've done. I guess next would be the Ultra, but Jesus. So I highly recommend BoneFrog. There was 3 cool obstacles. One where you did dips, one where you did pull-ups, one where you did burpees. And each one of those things where you did each rep, you called out a name in remembrance of a SEAL or a military member who had passed fighting for our country. So that was a very cool section for me. It was one after the other. The pull-ups I remember for the Medal of Honor recipients. The burpees were for a SEAL team, and actually there was a canine on the SEAL team. So I thought those were very cool. But all in all, so what you want to see the medal, and this is the primary reason I did this thing. So you get a medal for each of the lengths, the sprint, the challenge, and the tier 1, and then you get the Trident medal, and it all goes together to make one Voltron-esque giant Trident medal. This thing's ridiculous. It weighs like 4 pounds. It is a transformer. These kind of slide in. If you want to be compact, that's how that works, and then they slide out. I freaking love this thing. I mean, you can see how big it is. It's ridiculous. But, this one definitely goes on the wall. It's badass. I love it. And go get yourself a Trident. Go run a BoneFrog. Add it to your list of races. I think they do about 6 or 8 of them around the country. So, they're a new race. Please go support them. Go run a race. Do a sprint. It's 3 miles. Knock it out. Sprint, you get this. With this one? Sprint, you get this guy. Yeah, these do come off. They each come with their own ribbon. But when you take the ribbons off, and you get your little, just like, any other race medal. But then they all kind of slide into this big contraption, and you get your Trident medal. This one, the tier 1, which is a 9 miles, a little bit bigger than the other one. There's also an endurance race, which is, however many laps of whatever you want to do. The endurance race medal is bigger than the other ones. It's a little bit larger. So, BoneFrog Trident, go run it. Have fun. Nurse Mike. I'll catch you guys later. Be good.